Thanks, Corla. Well, Tánaiste, yesterday the Taoiseach, he spoke of the dark chapters in our history, but today tens of thousands of adults and children continue to live through a dark chapter and in plain sight. In the Department of Housing's homelessness report, of course, as Deputy O'Brien has quoted, almost 6,000 adults and 3,700 children are again homeless. And of these, of course, just over 4,000 homeless adults and almost 3,000 homeless children were based in the 4 Dublin counties, which have perhaps up to 40,000 households in all on housing waiting lists. Now, homeless campaigners like Anthony Flynn of Inner City Helping Homelessness have seriously questioned the veracity of these figures and point to the exclusion of almost 800 applicants from homeless lists in March and April. Another analyst, Mel Reynolds, has challenged the accuracy of Minister Murphy's direct bill figures, and we know that, for a fact, over 6,000 households were removed from housing lists after the last Dublin City assessment. So firstly, Tánaiste, is it not time to have an independent assessment of Department of Housing and Local Government housing stats, perhaps carried out by the CSO? Dublin Bay North, of course, is the worst affected constituency in Ireland. This year, Dublin City Council Housing Area B, our area, the city area of DBN, has 7,345 households on waiting lists or in emergency accommodation, a higher figure than for all of Fingal, for all of South Dublin or for any other Irish local authority area. And when the Fingal part of Dublin Bay North is added, Dublin Bay North has a housing and homeless problem greater than your constituency and the other 4 core constituencies combined. In response to this emergency, of course, you and Minister Murphy have only offered very belated, confused, almost totally ineffective solutions, which, combined with the profound lethargy from our two local authorities' senior management, has produced intense suffering for my constituents. And Tánaiste, you're not getting there. There's no way you're getting there in terms of homelessness. Last Saturday, a mother and her very bright 7-year-old daughter came to meet me. This child is distressed by the prospect of homelessness, and she and her mother are facing their second eviction in just under 2 years, this time, Tánaiste, from a HAP tenancy. Like other parents, the girl's mum is deeply concerned for the welfare of the child and herself, given the huge stress and disruption caused by constantly moving home and the very poor prospect in Dublin Bay North of a stable, forever home with a local authority or voluntary body. And of course, that child is only one of the thousands and thousands of children awaiting rehousing or an emergency accommodation. And yesterday, of course, Focus, Simon, Bernardos and St Vincent de Paul, they rightly drew attention to children in hidden homelessness. All of this is happening, of course, Tánaiste, against the background of surging and uncontrolled rents, up to 2,000 plus per month in DBN, which reduces the regular evictions which make families homeless and when families come to see deputies and so on. You yourself broke your pledge to end the practice of sending children and families to hotels from July 1st, 2017. You broke that, and you didn't deliver the family hubs, even. You certainly didn't deliver the housing. I've repeatedly asked Ministers opponent about the government taking action to prevent children becoming homeless, knowing as we do the adverse effects it has on children. And this egregious PR nonsense from Minister Murphy to say that homelessness is stabilising, as I said, yourself, Minister Murphy and Minister Zappone, you will be held to serious account for this, Tánaiste, in the general election.
Thank you,
so I know you'll give me the usual mantra, as you've given Deputy O'Brien in response, but after nearly 8 years of failure, is there now any prospect of an emergency public housing programme? You say it's a crisis, so why don't we have crisis response, serious rent controls and truly affordable mortgages?
Tánaiste.
Well, Deputy, there's a lot of questions there, but let me say that we do have rent controls. For the first time in the history of the state, I introduced them, and this government made that happen in Christmas week of last year. And as a result of those rent controls, we are seeing some limitations in relation to rental inflation. And I think about 67% of rental properties in the country now are covered by those rent pressure zones. There are issues in relation to student accommodation, which the Minister has agreed to look at and is working with other opposition parties in relation to. In relation to not delivering on family hubs, Deputy, I think if memory serves me correctly, we spent about €50 million on family hubs so far. We've seen 300 people out of hotels now in family hubs that are not ideal accommodation, but they're a significant improvement on what we had before the family hubs, so that families have a bit more dignity, a bit more privacy, they can do their own washing, their own cooking, and they can behave as families should together in a more realistic way on a temporary basis, while the state improves the throughput times from when people are in emergency accommodation to when the state finds them more permanent accommodation. So believe me, I don't think that family hubs are a long-term solution here. But we have been faced with a dramatic increase in homelessness over a very short space of time. The government has had to respond to trying to deal with people in that very vulnerable set of circumstances. And while it takes time and significantly more money, which has been committed to, and the capacity increases which are happening within local authorities to deliver a very significant increased and accelerated social housing delivery programme, we have to deal with people and families in the meantime. And we have seen, unfortunately, for all sorts of reasons, a dramatic increase in the number of people coming into homelessness. One of the encouraging things in the last number of months is that we have seen the number of presentations of homelessness actually reduce in the last number of months, which is, I think, an encouraging sign, but we are far from out of the woods in relation to solving this issue. It's a huge priority for government, and it will continue to be into the future. In relation to the Hidden Homeless campaign, which is a legitimate campaign, but I think it's important to say that the NGOs involved are not suggesting that people who are in overcrowded conditions on a temporary basis should be categorised as part of the homeless figures. That's not what they're asking. This campaign is about raising the awareness of the fact that there are many overcrowded homes in Ireland, which again is a driver for the need for more and more social housing and a more balanced and affordable rental market, which is what the state is working on.
Thank you, Tánaiste. Deputy Broughan.
Tánaiste, I mean, it's your policies over the last 8 years, nearly 8 years now, which has produced the homelessness problem, which has got us into this terrible crisis that we're in. You're totally relying on profit-driven private developers and landlords, and indeed all your projections, even to 2021, up to 60% of units that will become available are through HAP. We've almost no Part 5 units, for example, in Dublin Bay North. And the delivery of social housing, I mean, that's a key point. You don't have a serious pipeline, and that Minister has refused to create a serious pipeline of homes coming forward for the people I'm talking about. For example, in Dublin Bay North in 2015-17, delivery has been pathetic. Dublin City Council built less than 90 new homes throughout the city in 2015 and 2016. Only 81 Part 5 homes were delivered for the whole city in the period to 2015-17. In the Hope Malahide ward of Fingal, for example, there was zero construction or new build or Part 5 in 2015-16. And even the 2018 projections, 333 housing units for a city housing list, direct bill for a city housing list of 20,000 units. Almost everything that we see is scheduled for completion in Q2, Q3, 2019, after the general election, by the way, Minister. And any of the large sites we have at Santry, Newtown, Belmain, Belcamp, etc., they're in planning for up to 20 years. So we do need a new delivery structure, Minister. We do need an emergency housing programme, as perhaps a state company as proposed by Neary, even a housing executive for the Dublin region. You're failing, and you will be held to account, Minister. There will be a lot less of you on those benches after the general election as regards housing.
Deputy, I'm happy to be held to account for my role in relation to trying to fix the housing crisis. But let me answer your question, Deputy. I believe that in time the policy changes that we have made as a government will be highly effective. But I am happy to share with you the concerns in relation to the number of people who are homeless today, which is a reminder of the job that we need to do. But what I will not accept in this House is the pretence that you seem to be operating on, that we don't have a pipeline of delivery for social housing, because it's simply not true. And if you look at the facts in terms of what have been delivered in the last number of years, in 2016 in terms of new build, if you add local authority delivery and approved housing bodies, there was only 657 social houses delivered in terms of new build in 2016. Last year that figure jumped to just under 2,300. The figure this year will be significantly higher again, and the year after that. And we're going to get to a point where we're delivering somewhere between 7,000 and 10,000 social houses a year.
Thank you.
And we have the funding and we have the pipeline to deliver that now in terms of projects. And not only that,
thank you, Tánaiste, time is up.
The reason why I'm so critical of you on this issue is that the information is there, it's available, it's published. You can see what each individual local authority is committing to this year.
The time is up, please.
And if you took the time to look at that, perhaps your question would be more accurate.
Deputy Roisin Shortall.